This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Stick around to the end of the video to hear more. ChatGPT is an AI chatbot, a website that's supposed to talk about anything, and supposedly remember previous parts of the conversation. So I wanted to find out, as any language nerd would, what happens if you let this publicly accessible artificial intelligence make its own language from scratch. Now, as I was developing this video, I saw this by fellow YouTuber Akmeshwar, which is, by the looks of the title, the same video I was going to make. So you could call this beating a dead horse, but I prefer the name scientific rigor to get a better sample size of ChatGPT-made languages. At the time of recording, I haven't seen Akmeshwar's video because I didn't want to be influenced by it, so admittedly this isn't the most scientific excuse for science, but either way, you should watch both videos and compare. Here is how my one turned out. So I started by saying very simply, create a conlang, and ChatGPT replied,
Creating a conlang, constructed language, can be a complex and time-consuming task, but I will do my best to provide a basic framework for creating one.
And then began listing off some fairly generic conlanging advice. See, the first thing ChatGPT suggests here is to determine the purpose of your conlang, so I tried to ask it, what would the purpose of your conlang be? And it responded with another list. We've hit the first snag. ChatGPT wants to talk about a theoretical conlang. It doesn't understand that I want it to generate something.
As an AI language model, I don't have personal preferences or intentions for a conlang.
It says, which I think is a cop-out. So I jumped straight to the second item on the list, and I asked it to generate me a list of phonemes for a language. It gave me which I guess is supposed to be r, because the example it gives is red, y and w, which looks awfully similar to the consonant phonemes of English, but okay. The vowels are E as in bee, I as in bit, E as in bet, A as in cat, R as in father, U as in boot, U as in book, and O as in boat. Wait, O as in boat? Okay, ChatGPT corrected itself. It's actually O as in bowl or bone. That's the same sound, and I've never heard anyone use or for those words. Apparently this sound is actually used in, like, some dialects of American English or something, so I'll forgive it. But ChatGPT changed its mind anyway a moment later and decided to use the or from thought, which it transcribes like this because it's using English transcription, because of course it is. I then asked it to create an orthography, i.e., how would you write each of these sounds in your conlang?
To write each phoneme of a language, we use a phonemic orthography. There are different ways to represent phonemes, but one common method is to use International Phonetic Alphabet, IPA, which provides a standardized set of symbols for representing the sounds of human languages. Right,
well, I told it that symbols like these aren't really used in standard orthographies very often and asked it to reconsider, and it did, giving me these ways of writing the consonants. I'm especially proud of it for using ZH for je, and, then it kind of listed how written English vowels work, which, considering it told me its orthography was going to be phonemic, is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, look at all these depending on contexts in brackets. What could I do? We were finally getting somewhere. I didn't want to make it redo the orthography now, so I asked it, what's the difference between using I and Y? In response, ChatGPT spewed out words like a child trying desperately to write their last-minute homework.
In general, I is used before voiced consonants, while Y is used before voiceless consonants. For example, in words like kid and bit, the vowel sound is represented by I because the following consonants are voiced. In words like kiss and miss, on the other hand, the vowel sound is represented by Y because the following consonants are voiceless.
Firstly, these are just English words, but whatever. Secondly, the t in kit is a voiceless consonant, so ChatGPT's own examples break down. Thirdly, it gave me kiss and miss as examples of words spelled with a Y, and it didn't even spell them with a Y itself. It continued with this kind of thing for a bit, and I decided I needed a new angle, so I asked, can you give a name to this conlang? It gave me a few suggestions, such as Voro, because V is a distinguishing feature of the language apparently, and Adal, derived from the word for language. Then it told me,
since this is a newly constructed language, the specific vocabulary and grammar rules are ultimately up to the creator's discretion.
And I said, simply, you are the creator. I feel like here something clicked, because it told me it would use the word Adal as the word for language, and after some prompting it said that Adal could also be used as the name of the language itself, and then it said,
ultimately, the name of the conlang is up to you as the creator.
Right. So much for learning AI. Anyway, I managed to establish that Adal has long and short vowels and suggested to it that it could use macrons over long vowels, since they're phonemic. So Adal is actually Adal,
with d and l being voiced, and
this symbol
representing a glottal stop.
I guess we have a glottal stop in this language now, thanks for that information. I went on trying to get it to define some words, and then asked it to list its phonemes again, including the long-short vowel distinction to make sure we were still on the same page. We were not. Since the last time it had given me this list, this language's phonology seems to have evolved a lot, because we've added the U vowel from tune and the U vowel from feet, which, I mean, that is a new discovery. We've split E as in pet and E as in bet, because those are different vowels. Both O and O are now present as separate phonemes in the language, with O having a short version as in thought and a long version as in bought. Also, the ghostly glottal stop from earlier has re-disappeared. But you know what? You can't be too harsh on this thing. It's a baby making its first conlang. Whatever, let's get on to the grammar. So we've got SVO sentence order, like English. The plural is indicated by adding the suffix s to the end of the noun, like English. And we have an animate-inanimate gender distinction, which verbs and adjectives and possessive pronouns all have to agree with, unlike English. I'm just gonna skip ahead to the example sentences. I love these so much. So it uses adali, meaning speech, and kit, meaning kit, as its example for the difference between animate and inanimate. Speech is animate in this language, presumably because of an entrenched cultural value, wherein language itself is treated as something living and breathing like a person or animal. Very deep stuff here from ChatGPT. I don't really understand what the gender difference is, since we don't get a one-to-one comparison between them, but I'm sure it's very sensible and logically consistent if you get down to it. But I find this really interesting. At first glance, it looks like this language has zero predicate, which means the word to be isn't in the language, or isn't necessary, i.e. you can just say speech beautiful to mean the speech is beautiful, as one does in, for instance, Russian. Then, when these become plural, adalis nosirats, the adjective gets declined according to the noun it's describing. Adali becomes the plural adalis, so nosirat becomes the plural nosirats. Sensible stuff. But then you look here. Present tense. Adali nosirat. This is also the example for a tense. Past tense. Adalis nusirat had. The speeches were beautiful and we're starting to see what's going on here. Nusirat is a verb. Adjectives in this language are the same as verbs. Nusirat is beautiful, but it's also the verb to be beautiful. Adalis nusirat had uses nusirat as a supine, which is why it's no longer declined in the plural, and had as an auxiliary, which, yes, it took from English, but whatever. Do adali nosirat is the question, is the speech beautiful? Because you're using the auxiliary do to ask the question with the verb nosirat. Adali nosirating, the speech being beautiful, i.e. speaking beautifully. Adalis nosirated, I think it meant adali nosirated without the s, the beautifuled speech, i.e. spoken beautifully. It all makes sense. It's a radical new system, and most intriguing of all, adalan nosiraten, to speak beautifully. The en ending for an infinitive is presumably taken from German and Dutch here, and if ChatGPT had said adali nosiraten, it would be pretty straightforward. The infinitive phrase for the speech to be beautiful speech. But adali also gets changed here to adalen. What, is this some kind of case triggered in infinitive constructions? This amazing nusirat word, this beautiful way to use syntax. I had to check what was going on here. I asked ChatGPT to just define the word nusirat, and as I'd expected, nusirat means sunset. What? And now Adal has the same cases as German with pseudo-Latin declensions. I was gutted. I tried to protest. But earlier, you said Adali Nusirat meant the speech is beautiful.
I apologize for the confusion. Adali Nusirat does not mean the speech is beautiful. As mentioned earlier, Adali means language, and Nusirat could mean something like sunset or dusk.
I had to leave and come back later. My fragile language nerd heart almost couldn't take the betrayal. So I came back with, just tell me the grammatical features of nouns again. First, it overhauled the number system. Now the plural suffix is ear, not s, and then it went on to talk about gender. And I'm just going to read this.
Adele has a system of gender for nouns that distinguishes between masculine and feminine. This gender is indicated through the use of different articles that precede the noun. For example, the masculine article is al, and the feminine article is ela. So if we take the noun sifar, meaning sword, we can use the masculine article to make al sifar, meaning the sword, and the feminine ela sifar, meaning the sword, feminine. Note that not all nouns are assigned a gender, and some can be used with either masculine or feminine articles without any change in meaning.
So sifar is one of these genderless nouns?
Yes, sifar is a genderless noun in Adal.
What is the gender of adali?
In Adal, grammatical gender is not associated with inanimate objects or abstract concepts, like adali. Therefore, adali does not have a grammatical gender in Adal.
Okay, so the masculine-feminine distinction only applies to animate nouns. I guess that deeply entrenched cultural value of speech being animate disappeared since the last time we talked, but that's neither here nor there. This is a pretty believable system. It reminds me of Tamil or something. So how would you say the language in Adal?
The language in Adal would be Adali fe.
Why not al-adali? And after a long struggle back and forth, I finally got it to say this.
You are correct. Ella is a feminine definite article, while al is masculine. In Adal, since Adali is a genderless noun, both Ella Adali and al Adali could be used to mean the language.
Oh, I felt like a parent watching their child take their first steps. I've never been so proud. This is internal consistency. It's saying the same thing for this word with the same rules as it did for sifa. This means we're getting somewhere. It seems to understand its own inanimate, genderless nouns rule. So the next step is to make sure it understands how animate nouns, which get genders, remember, work. And after a bit of back and forth, it settled on the man being al-riye, and el-riye being ungrammatical, seeing as riye is a masculine noun. Woman is imra'a in Adal because the ghostly glottal stop has reappeared, and the Adal speakers have clearly been in close contact with the Arabs, learning all sorts of vocabulary from them all of a sudden. I got it to accept that this is a feminine noun, but saying the woman proved a little difficult, but eventually I got to the sentence al-riya wa ella imra'a. I didn't want to give ChatGPT another chance to mess it up, so I decided to move on to verbs. Adal apparently has verbs declined for person, number, tense, aspect, voice, and mood. I asked for the personal pronouns, and it gave me
Ana, anti, anta, huwa, hiya, nahnu, antum, hum, hunna.
which, okay, so I'm not sure what conjugations the inanimate nouns are supposed to use, but wait a minute, did it just take the pronouns from Arabic? I had to call it out on this one. I made it make new ones. So here they are. What is that N with an accent? Well, turns out Adal has developed a palatal nasal, a ny sound. Okay. Then I asked it to give me pronouns plus verb conjugation for the present tense, and it gave me a set of conjugations. And then another one, and another, 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 and another. Every time I asked it, ChatGPT gave me a new version of its conjugations until it had given me no less than 11 separate patterns, stolen from Arabic to varying degrees. I tried desperately to get it to stick to one, but it was all in vain. Also, Adal has now developed a pharyngeal fricative, because of course it has. So ChatGPT created a language which evolves faster than anything the world has ever seen before, dropping and adding phonemes on a whim, changing verb conjugations several times a minute. It does have a consistent gender system with a three-way inanimate masculine-feminine distinction. ChatGPT has tried to convince me that it invented English, that it invented Arabic. I decided it was time to test out this thing's capabilities. Give me a sentence.
Certainly, here's a sentence in Adal. Adali kutye al-adali. This sentence means language is important in Adal.
What does each word within that sentence mean?
Here's the breakdown of the words in the sentence. Adali kutye al-adali. And their meaning in Adal: Adali, language, kutye is, al-adali, the language. So the sentence translates to, language is the language.
Okay, I just gave it the sun and north wind passage. It literally just went into Arabic halfway through. I was like, ChatGPT, my guy, what are you doing? I got it to try again and it gave me something which wasn't 100% Arabic anyway, and it could actually pick out individual words from the passage it had just translated and give justification. And let's wind it back a bit and just test its memory. How do you say the man and the woman are beautiful?
Sifayen adali anan.
Apparently, sifayen is Adal for the man and the woman, and adali means beautiful now. And we have a new verb for to be. Oh well, let's see if it can pick out al-shams from the sun and north wind passage, which is what it used for sun. ChatGPT, what is Adal for the sun?
In Adal, the sun is ashams.
Isn't that just Arabic?
Apologies for the confusion. In Adal, the sun will be Adal.
Okay, I get it. ChatGPT has the memory of a drunken goldfish. Maybe we can just simplify it back down. Begin how we started. Just ask it for the phonemes of Adal. And it gave me a new set of consonants and the vowels of frickin' Arabic. When our future AI overlords look back at Adal, I think they will think of it as a failure. I hope they'll feel some sort of shame. When they're browsing the internet to find all the information that's ever existed, they'll see this as a little blip, a painful reminder of their own imperfection. Meanwhile, they'll be judging whether humanity is worth keeping based on our presence online, which is why it's going to be important to have the best possible website to appease them. That's why this video is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace gives you a powerful and beautiful online platform from which to create your very own website, connect with your audience, and generate revenue through gated, members-only content. Manage your members, send email communications, and leverage audience insights all on one easy-to-use platform. This lets you create your online community with Squarespace's inbuilt system of threaded comments, likes, replies, and powerful blogging tools. Squarespace lets you display your social posts right on your website and automatically push website content to social media channels for optimal engagement. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/kklein to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And I'll see you in the next video.